Hi, Floppycatters. Today, I'm very excited to have Samantha Stupak today to read the results of our bioenergetic scans, Charlie's and mine. Sam, I was hoping that you could talk a little bit about how PetMedella and CBH energetics were born.
Yeah, I will give you the condensed version because I could talk about it for a long time, but thank you for having me first and foremost. And
Yes.
so I got my undergrad in packaging engineering, and I was doing that, probably for a few years living in Chicago when I went on a cruise, partied my butt off, had a good old time, came back and just felt wound down. And then I was like getting sicker and sicker the longer I was home, to the point in a course of a month, I went from just thinking I was tired from a cruise to being completely bedridden. And then for the next 4 years, that's how I was. It was doctor visit after doctor visit after doctor visit, taking so much blood, poked and prodded in every orifice. A month-long stay at a big clinic here in the United States, only to be told, here's a antidepressant, there's nothing wrong with you. According to your blood work, you look healthy as a horse, and it's just like, I know something's wrong, but when you're told that time and time and time again by hundreds of different doctors, you start thinking you're just nuts, and maybe it all is in my head. So I kind of just succumbed to it, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna get any answer I need from traditional means, because God knows I tried. I mean, I went to so many doctors. And finally, this lady, she tested positive for fibromyalgia. And we were chatting together, and she's like, it sounds like you're struggling with a lot of the things that I struggled with, but then some. You should go see this doctor that's up in Wisconsin. I think it'd be really good for you. And so I got on his list to go see him. And in that appointment, and just to give you a little background on him, he used technology very similar to what we use here at CBH and PetMedella. And in that first appointment, he's testing me and he says, "This is all from a tick bite." And I'm like, no, it can't be. I was tested for Lyme monthly for the last 4 years. It never came back positive. And it was this one of he was like, okay, well, it was nice meeting you. Good luck. Or you can take these supplements, change your diet, do these lifestyle hacks and see how you do. And so I was like, well, I waited long enough to see him, and I worked with him for 6 months. He was super expensive. So at 6 months, I couldn't afford to go anymore. But in that 6 month time frame, I was walking again, and I was deciding, do I go back to my career as an engineer? Because I didn't work for 4 years. So do I go back into that career, or my life has changed so much, and I have seen rock bottom. And when I was at rock bottom, I prayed not to wake up. I had no quality of life. And I said to myself back then, like, if I ever make it through this, I'm going to help other people that are struggling like I was. So it was like a no-brainer. I went back to study bioenergetic medicine and became a holistic health practitioner. And I started seeing clients in person like he did in Wisconsin, and kind of like this hotbed of tick country in Wisconsin. And I mean, within a week of seeing clients, I had a 3 month wait list. And it was such a beautiful thing. And it was just like turning lemons into lemonade for sure. But 12 hours a day, because I wanted to help as many people as I could, at 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, I was starting to burn out. I mean, anyone would, let alone someone that just recovered from, some serious chronic illness. And so there's got to be a different way. And that's when I started to go back to my engineering degree and really lean into it. Like, how can I tweak this technology? How can I change the technology to be able to help more people? And that's what I did. We worked in changing the software, changing the hardware, and then hiring technicians, and replicated the exact methods that I was using when I was seeing people in person. And it has just taken off. I mean, we're going on, close to 14 years now. And it's just been an incredible thing to be able to help so many people. But the interesting thing is, I would say it was maybe a year into testing people that my little girl Mila, she was half pit, half yellow lab. She started to have a hard time walking, and she was seeming really lethargic. And she was only 6 years old at the time, so it wasn't, something was wrong. And it was so beautiful in being able to have her sort of be a catalyst in the creation right around that same time that we were working on figuring out how to test hair and saliva, that she is the reason that PetMedella was born. And it's such a beautiful thing, because it's like we see our animals and we would just tell us what's wrong, and they can't. So you're kind of guessing all the time. And she was, our little guinea pig for the PetMedella side. And the interesting thing, being from the Midwest, she had a lot of the same tick bite related things that I had. And so same thing with her. We got her back on track pretty quickly. And she was a 65-pound dog. She ended up living to almost 19 years old. So
Wow.
yeah. So because of her, PetMedella was born.
And I'm very grateful for her and you for that as well. I was thinking about that too. I mean, if you look at the scans of Charlie and me, like there are a lot of similarities, and it's because we share the same house, we share the same air space. Like, so if there are mold problems or spores or whatever, we're both getting exposed to that. So it is very interesting. I mean, a lot of people say that your animals will exhibit things that you have going on with you, depending on your connection with them. But I also think, just from a scientific standpoint, you guys are sharing the same space. So it is likely that you're going to have the same issues.
Yeah, not only that, but then you just get into like the bioenergetic space. I mean, we are in each other's energy field constantly.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's very, and we see that all the time between pet owners and their parents. If we're testing a family, like their kids and parents, I mean, we see really neat connections that it's like if we can see a connection within a family, whether that's a pet and a parent, or all two-legged family members, it's really neat, because then you can start to hone in on not only how to cleanse and clear it from their field for each person or animal individually, but then you can have that bigger conversation of what's happening in your environment that needs to be addressed as well. Whether it's
Yes.
your water supply, or your the quality of your air, things like that.
Yes. Interesting. Have you had an experiment where you only treat one member of the family and it corrects other members of the family, or have you
We've
not had
seen
that
we've seen
chance?
that. We've seen that happen
Okay.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, like the core person or the core animal that's
Yes.
carrying the bulk of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
There was a really cool study Dr. Cass did. He's one of my favorite doctors to learn under. And he was working with a daughter, a mother, and a grandmother. And I don't remember what their symptoms were, but daughter came to him with some pretty significant health issues. And so in his own experiment, he wanted to see how generational trauma impacted from grandma down to daughter. He treated grandma, and it solved it all for mom and daughter too. It was
Oh
so
my
cool.
gosh.
Yeah.
That I just got goosebumps. That is, yeah, that makes so much sense. And Bob Proctor talks about change your paradigm, change your life, and your paradigms are taught by, older generations. So yeah, oh man, that's good stuff right there. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Okay.
fascinating.
Yes. Okay, so can you dive a little bit into how it works, as far as, I mean, at this point, Floppy Cats readers are going to be watching. They've already watched me send in the samples at this point in the video. So I took the hair and saliva samples, and then what happens when they get to you guys?
Yeah. So once we receive them, they go to one of our 11 testing locations. So we have 11 locations around the US. And from that point, they stay securely locked until the technician's ready to start testing them. So they'll get them, put them inside our very, very expensive, very It's a basically a test plate that's made of raw metals that makes it very conducive for emanating the energy off of the samples. So once they put it on there, that system is then hooked up to software. And then that software is all custom designed to test all the different parameters and data points that we need. So the technician uses these really fine tools and starts probing the hair and saliva based on specific energy fields. For example, the thyroid, or for where the liver is, or where, the different parts of the body. Then once they get through that entire, all those different points of the body that we're testing, let's say, for example, we see that someone has a lot of stress in their gallbladder and their thyroid. What they do then, since those are two really big things, or if they have like 20 organs that are all out of balance, they'll do like basically look at all of them in one and start testing to find out specifically what's triggering the stress in each. So that's when they start testing for specific signatures of different toxins. So everything has a signature, kind of like a snowflake. Everything is unique. So a signature for Borrelia, which is the bacteria that causes Lyme, is very different than the signature of E. coli or aluminum. So we basically go through a filtration system, scanning to see which specific signature is matching, because then that tells us that that salmonella is impacting the liver. But then we also flip our testing procedure to then start looking for deficiencies, which nutritional signatures are missing, creating a weakness in that area. And then we do food sensitivities as well, where say we take the signature for soy and expose it to the hair and saliva. It should fall within a normal range of 49 to 59 hertz. If it doesn't, if it jumps up to like 70 or drops to 30 hertz, we know that it's very inflammatory or it's very weakening for that person. So that's how we determine a lot of the different factors throughout the report. And then we're even testing for those remedies. And then what's cool about testing for remedies is we have those signatures for every single remedy recorded into our database to find the one that balances with each person or pet best. So
Okay.
it's a pretty elaborate process from beginning to end. There's a lot of back and forth, making sure like we're hitting the head perfectly in terms of finding that right regimen at the end of it.
Is there room for error?
Is there room for error? Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is, for example, let's see, if someone didn't give enough hair, that's a big one. If someone, like, in a perfect world, we would like at least 25 to 30 strands of hair. And that could be short or long, but more is always better. And it's always interesting to see when someone literally sends a strand of hair. It gives us, it's hard to work from that. Or if they
Yeah.
don't get enough saliva on there, it's really like it makes the testing process a lot more laborious. So more is always better. And I think that there's also, when it comes to sensitivity testing, I think it's widely accepted that no sensitivity test is ever perfect. And it could be that, and for a lot of reasons. I mean, if you eat a ton of strawberries for a month, and you have a gut issue, well, we're probably going to find a sensitivity to strawberries because you ate a ton of strawberries. Um, Whereas, like, if you know you have an issue with gluten and you avoid gluten for years because you know you don't feel well when you eat it, well, we might not test because it's like a foreign substance. We don't recognize it because you haven't had it in so long. So there is those little factors, but
Yes.
stepping back and looking at all of it together, it's so neat to find the whys. Like, okay, so you have a strawberry sensitivity. Let's understand why. Well, it's not really a strawberry sensitivity. It's that your gut is leaky, So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay. So let's say that like when I took my sample, for example, I was about to be sick and and I didn't know that at the time. When you get my hair and saliva, are you testing that specimen from the day that I took it, or like somehow is it the energy from me, like the day that it's tested, if I'm saying that correctly?
Yeah, it's more of like it's around the time that you collected.
The scan is from the around the time that it was taken, the sample
Hmm.
was taken.
Yep.
So same for Charlie. Like so I was thinking as far as like room for error too, is if I take a sample from Charlie when he had like he just got over a GI bug and we're in the middle of pollen season. So his results right now versus 2 weeks from now are going to be a lot different as well. So I think that's something to take into consideration. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's something to take into consideration for sure, but and I always tell people like if you're sick, if you're going through something that's temporary, for sure, just like wait it out. Like if you have a cold, just try to wait it out and then wait a few days until you're feeling better. After a few, once you start feeling better, wait 3 days, take your samples, then send them in. But if there's something lingering and it's lingering too long, you want to know about it because your body and your immune system should be able to get you better faster. So what is it about your immune system or what is it about that specific toxin that's keeping you down? And we want to know that because then hopefully long term that doesn't happen again. We can support the body systems that are keeping you down too long.
Have I not asked anything I should have?
I don't think so. I don't think
Okay.
so. I guess one thing is I always like to let people know because sometimes when they're like, well, why am I filling out a health questionnaire if you're just doing the testing? And it's for this moment when we start to go through a health questionnaire because when we can see specifically what someone's struggling with, it changes the way we explain the results.
Mm,
And potentially also, like, of course, if someone's on a medication or a supplement or something like that, we need to know so we're not listing a formula that would have an interaction with one of the medications someone might be on, or if they're pregnant or nursing or anything like that. So, it definitely changes a consultation, which I think is awesome. It just continues, like the testing itself is so unique to each individual, like first and foremost. But then knowing the background of someone or a pet, it makes the report review that much more powerful because we get to hone in specifically on things like resonating leptospirea for Charlie. I mean, that hits the kidneys and it hits the kidneys really hard. Where it's like if we didn't know Charlie was having kidney issues and we just tested and it might change the amount of time a practitioner will spend talking through that specific area. So,
okay. And also, yes, I think the more thorough you can be when you send in the samples of like what supplements you're on, because I was not thorough, uh, because I give different supplements every day to Charlie because I muscle test what his body needs that day. And so I test over like 30 to 40 products a day for him, which is very cumbersome, but it's fine. I'm learning a ton by doing it. So I'm going to continue doing it. But I was like, I can't list 30 to 40 supplements because he's not on them every day. And some are like a pinch. So, so some of the results that I got from you, we've already discussed via email that you said, oh, well, if he's already on milk thistle, he doesn't need dandelions. So yes, that kind of
right.
yes. And also, Sam, can you talk about what are my options if I send in uh, a scan? I can do a 10-minute recording with a practitioner, right? I don't have to do this at all, or I can do a live one like we're doing. Is that correct?
Yep. You can do we have 30 or 60-minute consultations that you can
Okay.
do with a practitioner. We also have recorded reviews, which is a 10-minute like pre-recorded consultation with one of the practitioners. So we have a few different options. I think
Okay.
a live one's always helpful because then someone can, ask their questions in a live format
Yes.
and all of that. So.
Yes. Agreed.
All right, here is Charlie's report. And can you see the screen?
I can. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, just to give like a brief overview of this first part, and I'll actually give you a walkthrough of how I'm going to go through this because it can seem it can seem very ADD as I go through this because I bounce around so much. But I think that's the best way to do it because there's so many things that are triggering different areas and they're so intertwined. So if I lose you at any point, just let me know.
No, and I think that bouncing around makes sense because everything's connected and we forget about that in Western medicine. It's
Oh,
usually treated just one organ and it's all interconnected.
totally. Yeah, yeah. And I can say this. You are a fantastic cat mom because this is actually a really good first scan
Oh, awesome.
for a pet. Yeah. There's a lot of different things that we see that are more common with cats than are with dogs, that are with horses. But this is a really good first cat scan. And so this is the system performance, and this is all the different body systems. And what we do is we test 60 different organs, and then basically, like for example, digestive system is small intestine, large intestine, stomach. And then we identify what's driving each of these down under here. So like, for example, Charlie's digestive system, it's his stomach driving that one down. His liver and gallbladder, this area is just his liver driving that one down. So you can kind of see we categorize them all down here. And so while this is fantastic to see exactly where he's having stress, and I'll come back to each of these areas he's having stress, we want to know why. And that's when we're going to start to get into some of those deeper reasons why, whether it's the food sensitivities. And a food sensitivity for me is not root cause. It's more of it's a kind of like a symptom. The sensitivity to chia seeds isn't the reason why he's dealing with everything he's dealing with. There's a bigger reason, but this is feeding inflammation.
Okay.
Where we get to nutritional imbalances, this is where a nutrient is starving part of the body from being able to work optimally. So this is more root cause, as is the toxin section, which we'll get into these as well. But a toxin then is where he's exposed to a toxin and it's wrecking havoc on a certain part or parts of the body. And then we have the hormonal section, which also is not root cause, but it tells us a lot. It continues to paint the picture as to what's going on and why. And then last but not least, we'll dive into some of the remedies that came up for him, excuse me.
Okay.
So first and foremost is his digestive system. And let me I'm going to pull up my notes over here, which I don't think you can see my notes. Can you?
No.
Okay. All right. So in the digestive system, if we're thinking about getting more to like the root cause of this area, of course, food sensitivities are going to start to trigger stress in this area. So, I mean, a lot of these things, hopefully you're not giving him in the first place.
I know. Like I was surprised it came up because I was like, I'm not giving him Xylitol.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but the cool thing about sensitivities is it continues just to like help us understand the bigger reason why. Like, for example, here's all these sugar sensitivities, which of course just cause inflammation throughout the body. So the big hitters here for Charlie, if we go down to the toxin section, he has a couple big ones. So and here you're seeing the origin of the toxins. And we do that because we want people to understand this is not a diagnosis or anything like that. This is saying there's been an exposure to the signature of these specific organisms, which means kind of like he's come into contact with the energy of a specific parasite or bacteria, and it's being held in his biofield, which when that happens, sometimes it can impact us or our pets just as the physical form of it would. And either way, we want to make sure we clear it. So for Charlie, one of them under parasites was the resonating parasites of cestodes. And then he also had Cryptosporidium come up. And so both of those can create like a lot of digestive inflammation, maybe some vomiting. You think about Cryptosporidium, Can be outside, water, soil, feces, wherever he's exposed to it. Because you had mentioned he was throwing up for a while.
Yeah, so he was doing really, really well, like, even with his kidney disease. And then something happened on August 3rd where he just stopped eating, started vomiting. Like it was so acute that I was like, this isn't the kidney disease. But I was told, it's probably his kidneys. He's starting to, I'm like, no, it happened so acutely. So I bet yeah. And it's taken forever to get him back on track. Like he's still
Yeah,
not completely there. So it's been
yeah,
2 months of work.
right. Well, and so when you talk about Cryptosporidium and mycoplasma, that was one of the bacterias that came up for him as well. Both of them hit the digestive system, but they also really hit the liver and gallbladder. So between these two, that can be a lot of that indigestion, vomiting, fatigue, all of that. And so I'm not super surprised it's taking him a little bit of a while to like, get on top of it. But have you been giving him anything, like any kind of antimicrobial?
Um, uh, like my muscle testing like this is why I knew something was going on digestively is it kept swinging to probiotics.
Mm,
So multiple different, I have mostly adored bee stuff. So it was, roots and healthy gut and Felix's flora, and then it started swinging to colostrum. So yes, like in that sense, yes. And then I consulted with Pam at Perfectly Holistic, and she had me do colloidal silver for
mm,
I think like 6 or 7 days.
oh, good.
And then I finally finished with ozonated saline, which is also good for killing things. And that was super interesting because it was 7 days or something for that as well. And on day 6, he had a diarrhea. Like he went number 2 and then had solid stool, but the end of it was diarrhea. And then that was
Mm,
it. Like didn't have diarrhea again. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. I think that might have been it. But
yeah, purged it out.
yes, yeah.
And normal bowel movements thereafter?
Yes.
Oh,
And
good.
he actually hasn't vomited a lot. Like it was just at the beginning of this happening and then that stopped. But
Hmm.
it was more the inappetence that was concerning to me. And the
Yeah,
nausea.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, it sounds like you hit the nail on the head with the probiotics and the silver. I mean, silver is so great for pets.
Yeah.
But then of
I
course,
mean, this is super validating though. Like, because I was like, what is going on? Gosh.
For sure. For sure. Well, and now it's just, I mean, he's not that far away from being back into balance. Once you get up to 81, you're back into the blue. So he's not far off there. And if we look at some of the nutrients that are really important for the digestive system specifically, magnesium, of course, is important for the entire body, but also the digestive system. I wouldn't necessarily say he needs to take supplemental magnesium, but it just, diet wise, getting foods that are potent in it. And these food lists, so these are kind of across the board and they're static lists for dogs, cats, horses. So of course, just do the things that, are appropriate for that species. You're
Yes,
obviously not
yes.
going to be giving your cat grapefruit or anything like that.
Cantaloupe is actually great for cats. A lot of cats like it.
Oh,
So I actually have frozen cantaloupe that I like puree and put in ice cube trays, like little tiny ones. So that's what I'll give them.
oh my gosh, awesome. I love it. Um, this is kind of a big one over here for me in terms of the digestive enzymes over here. So this tells us a lot in terms of these three that he came up low on. So being low in amylase tells us he's having a hard time digesting carbohydrates right now, which, I mean, most cats shouldn't have a ton of carbohydrates in the first place. But, just maybe confirming, in the food you give him that there's not like a lot of grains or anything like that. Is he grain free?
So when all of this happened, he was on a raw food diet and had been for 2 years. And I had to start giving him canned food again just to get him to eat. So he has been on canned food now for at least 2 months. But he's just starting to eat raw again, just a little bit. He's like, no, I'm not going all in, sister. But
Yeah.
so yes, there are some foods that have like chickpeas in them.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah. Which, I mean, as long as he's not getting a ton, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
He's telling us his digestive system's having a hard time breaking them down, predominantly because he's low on that amylase. And then lactose
Yes.
is the enzyme that breaks dairy products down. And then lipase is the enzyme that breaks fats down. So again, if he is liking salmon or something like that, but then it gives him a bellyache, it could be that it's like too fatty of a meal and he's having a hard time breaking it down, which isn't a huge surprise because oftentimes whenever I see stress in the liver and low lipase, it's not really that you have to really work hard on getting the lipase balanced. You just have to work hard in getting the liver balanced. Because once the
Oh,
liver balances out, he can start better digesting fats.
got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And plus, once he's absorbing his fats better, his endocrine system should hopefully balance out too. But again, I mean, it's 73%, 74% here in his lymphatic system. That's pretty good. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back pretty quick.
Okay.
Um, so in terms of the liver, when it comes to the toxins, I mean, really, most toxins are, going through the liver at some point. So there's not one specifically that's probably hitting it. It's probably a combination of all of them. But more so when we get to the nutritional imbalances, this is where we're seeing, like some of the amino acids. Aminos are very healing and they help regenerate tissue and things like that. So it might be nice. I don't know. Does he ever drink bone broth or would he drink bone broth?
My cats and bone broth have never worked. I've tried probably 8 different brands and made my own, unfortunately.
Okay.
I would love it.
Yeah,
Love
if
it.
they would.
Yes.
Uh, when it comes to the liver, I mean, aminos are fantastic, but of course he's also a cat and going to be getting a ton of protein and aminos from his diet. But then it makes you think, what else could be potential, what could you do to help clear the liver? And one big thing, he had some heavy metals coming up here. And so with heavy metals, it kind of makes me stop because you resonated with heavy metals too. And it's kind of like, where could you be exposed to them? I mean, if you live in a city, you're breathing them in. If, like depending on your filtration system in your house for water, you could be bathing in them. You both could be drinking them. But for him, I mean, of course, breathing it outside or potentially inside, but what kind of water are you guys drinking?
He gets purely spring water.
Oh, he does. Okay, good. Good.
Yes, he's not allowed to have any tap water. I am bathing in it. I drink mostly spring water, but I do drink some tap water.
Okay. Yeah, stop it.
Okay.
Yeah, the spring water is the best because it still has the minerals in there.
Yes.
Want the minerals for sure.
Yeah.
Um, And for him, the glycine and leucine are two amino acids that are really supportive for actually helping to flush the liver as well. So I
Mhm.
don't know, like, knowing that turkey, for example, is nice and potent in glycine, if you could try giving him turkey, or if that's just like he's just too picky. Um,
No, he gets a variety of proteins. He's very good about eating a variety, so that should be fine. I actually gave him a slice of turkey the other night.
oh,
Um,
perfect.
yeah, there are some deli sliced turkeys like, you can get at natural grocers that doesn't have rosemary extract and all the other nitrate crap that I think is fine to feed.
Yeah. Well, and so how are you giving him the milk thistle right now?
Milk thistle is a struggle. So he's getting animal essentials milk thistle, and I put it into a capsule and
Oh,
pill
you,
it.
oh, really? Huh.
Because I mean, and you have to create it right then and there and pill it right then and there because otherwise the capsule is gonna disintegrate. But um, that's the only way because it's got alcohol in it, and so he'll
Sure.
taste it, and yeah,
It won't, yeah, it won't have anything to do with it. Gotcha. But of course that's going to be huge for his liver. So,
yes.
right.
And
So,
also Adored Beast liver tonic has dandelion and all that stuff in it, and he gets that depending on the muscle testing, but that's been very frequently, almost daily right now.
oh, which is awesome that you're like able to test that firsthand and see what he needs and give it to him every day. And I mean, you
But
wonder,
I always wonder, like, is this right? And that's why this is so validating that I'm like, damn. Yeah. Super
I'm good at
interesting.
this.
Yeah.
So then we get to his urogenital system, and this is kidneys, bladder, reproductive organs, and specifically for him, it's just the kidneys that's driving this one down. And this is where it gets really interesting for him. The big one here is the bacteria he resonated with, which is leptospira. And that is, oftentimes they can be exposed to it with water, soil, but also a lot of rodents carry it. So if he likes to catch mice or like if he's around mice feces or anything like that, that's a really common place to be exposed to it. And it's one of the leading issues that creates inflammation in the kidneys for cats and any kind
Hmm.
of dysfunction for cats. So that's one big thing that jumps out at me in his report for the urogenital, on top of the heavy metals down here. So when you think chemicals, heavy metals, a lot of times the kidneys are filtering a lot of those out. So, and does he still drink plenty of water?
Man, this is so fascinating. Um, he well, no, he's had some energy work done by a gal that does energy work on steroids, and he's stopped drinking water like he used to, which is
Mm.
a good, very, very good sign to me. Um, because he was drinking a lot, a lot, a lot, and now also from muscle testing because I muscle test when he needs subcutaneous fluids. We were going every 2 to 3 days in these last 2 months of how often he needed them, and now it's 5 to 6 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's definitely like definitely improving, but this I feel like this will be even better. I'm gonna be like, damn, he's 15, and because of this, now we can get him even better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, knowing things like leptospira and knowing how to address that, like silver is another great one for clearing something like it. If he just did 7 days of silver, did he just recently do 7 days of silver?
It was no, we did it like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, I forget exactly what the date you took the samples, but I have to imagine that the silver helped at least a little bit with clearing that specific bacteria. And
Okay.
maybe whether you want to talk to Pam or just muscle test it too to see it, how frequently should you put it in the rotation right now?
Okay, I'm gonna add it back in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Add it
And
back in to
then
test. But yeah, we'll see what the testing says.
yeah, for sure. And then magnesium and potassium, those ones are going to be pretty huge for kidney function as well. They help to keep electrolyte balance in the body. So, just trying again to make sure he's getting those good minerals in. Whether do you do any kind of mineral drops for him?
No, I've been thinking about adding beam minerals. Do you know about them?
I haven't
Um,
those.
what do you guys like a mineral company?
When it comes to cats, we usually like to do the like homeopathic mineral drops. Um,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. But with
okay.
that said, I don't think he actually resonated with any.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't resonate with needing any, but it's like one of those things that knowing you have an arsenal at home of remedies, it's like if you had mineral drops, maybe it'd be a good thing to add to his water every so often.
Yes, I'm going to add bioplasma. Do you know that? Is that considered a
Bioplasma.
mineral?
Never heard of that one. Is it that's the manufacturer?
Yes, I think so. No, the manufacturer's like Highland or something like that. But it, I was telling the doctor that does the energy work on steroids. We had a meeting yesterday. She actually looked at this,
Oh, awesome.
and she was saying, I was like, Charlie will like lick the hard water stains on my shower door, which then I just thought he is getting heavy metals if he's doing that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, but I know that that's a sign to take action. I just don't know what that is. I mean, I assume it's minerals. And she said, try bioplasma. So I had that from Pam suggesting it years ago. So again, I just like added it to my grouping of to test. Does Charlie need this today?
Perfect.
So
Awesome. I
and
love I love that flow because I mean, cats are delicate. They're little and they're very responsive. And so it's like you have a method down that really speaks to exactly what he needs every day.
yeah, it's been cool. I guess it's been one of the fringe benefits of my other cat dying because I have a lot more time. But like even your vitamin D, so both of my cats tested low for vitamin D as I did like a vitamin mineral test on them, blood work wise a couple of years ago. And so I added that back into our testing, and for 2 days in a row it had me give it to him and then it stopped.
Oh,
Um,
sure. Oh,
so but I will keep that in the rotation to know like it might be a couple days a week that he needs it and then he doesn't.
yep, for sure. That's a great one to keep in the mix. Just because, I mean, basically every system in the body needs vitamin D. So
Yes.
making sure it's in the sink for sure to see if it balances for him that day. So his lymphatic system, the only, or let me take back. It's not the only. There's two areas driving this one down. So his sinuses and then his teeth and jaw drainage. So does he have sinus issues? Is he reactive to like a lot of the seasonal things going on right now?
He will be like sneezy when the pollens start and it's been windy and the leaves are dropping, so it's not a fun time for him or for me.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but there's a Chinese herb called Happy Wanderer that really keeps him in check, and I didn't have him on it because I stopped. And now it's my first thing. I don't even muscle test it. I just give it to him every morning until we're through this season.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, he has quite a few environmental sensitivities. I mean, here's your pollen. Um, and so, but one of the other things that he resonated with, and you resonated with actually too, is a bacteria called mycoplasma. And well, I say that it's often passed from like person to person or person to animal, things like that. But it's also kind of a tricky bacteria because it's super tiny and it's so tiny that it can morph in different forms. Sometimes it'll present in more viral form or more bacterial form. It doesn't have a cell wall, so it can freely move throughout the body. But mycoplasma is also really well known for hitting the sinuses. So lots of
Mm.
sneezing, congestion, things like that as well. And interestingly, mycoplasma is also well known for hitting the thyroid. Luckily, it didn't hit his thyroid, but yeah. So
Where like I don't see microplasma like listed there. Is that not something you guys list?
yeah, we don't list it, but we go through them all during the consultations just
Okay.
because we used to list them and then people would start Googling them. And that was like it was giving people the wrong impression of what was happening because you start Googling mycoplasma and it sounds all scary. And it's just like, that was like, no, we don't want you to run to the doctor and get a prescription antibiotic. You've been exposed to it, you're holding the negative pattern of it, and we want to clear it. So that's why we stopped listing them specifically.
Got it.
Yeah. And then also he had some fungal stuff coming up. as well. And that can be from like just outdoor molds. I mean, being outside, especially right now, as like leaves are falling and things like that. But then also mycotoxins came up for him, which is like the gassing off of the mold. So it's kind of like the
Mm,
spores in the air. And that can really hit the entire lymphatic system pretty significantly, but specifically the sinuses. One thing, I don't know if you've ever tried this, but you could do like when you take a hot shower, you could have him come in with you and breathe in that warm steam in the bathroom, and it can help to loosen the mucosa to drain out.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he'll want to do a nutty pot, but I would.
Could you imagine?
Oh my gosh. I mean, he'd be like, you are the devil reincarnated.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Last but not least, I usually look at, well, I guess I didn't touch on the lymph system yet, or the last point in the lymph system yet, which is the teeth and jaw drainage. So we kind of consider the teeth and jaw drainage, whether it's in an animal or a human, part of the lymph system because there's so many lymph nodes up in like this area here, but also each tooth sets in a meridian that connects with the rest of the body. Does he have obvious dental issues or no?
Yeah, he's got tartar and gingivitis. Our vet has said I'm okay with him having that amount of tartar for the rest of his life so that we don't have to put him under for a dental.
Yeah, yeah.
But now that he's been eating canned food, that's more problematic for the mouth. And it's just, it's like a domino effect of like, oh, why? So yes.
Well, and sometimes certain organisms like mycoplasma or cestodes, he had the cestodes come up, which can create some like swollen gums and irritation in the mouth as well. Um, One thing you could try, I don't know if you've ever done this, but take a little bit of coconut oil and like rub it in his gums and teeth if he'll let you, because that's nice. It's going to help bring some of the inflammation down, but then it's also antimicrobial. So that
Yes,
can help
yes.
too. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So then last but not least, we have his immune system. And that is his allergy points driving that one down, which is sort of a representation of his overall immune health. And it's kind of like, when you look at the smorgasbord of different toxins coming up for him, of course, his immune system is fired up and in high gear right now. So usually once we start balancing things out by addressing some of the toxins and things like that, that will start to improve, especially to like if you can start giving him more of the vitamin D, which is so critical for the immune system when he tests for it, and then more aminos too.
Okay.
Let's see. So, when it comes to the sensitivities, I think we touched on most of these. I mean, you're probably not giving him most of them. Um, Hopefully not giving him any of the additives for sure.
Yeah.
One of the neat things that starts to happen with sensitivities though is when the digestive system and the liver or gallbladder start to balance out, you start to notice a nice decrease in sensitivities. It's like when there's congestion in either of those two organ systems, the sensitivities start to flare up.
Okay.
And then just to touch on his hormones a little bit. So the low calcitonin, this is helpful to help keep his bones nice and strong. Getting enough magnesium and vitamin D will help with that as well. The low insulin, this one is, when it comes to any sort of inflammation in the body, any of the blood sugar type hormones can come out of balance. So it's almost like telling us his insulin isn't as sensitive as it should be. So with that, again, I probably wouldn't do much to change anything within this hormone section right now, because by working on everything else with the remedies, these should hopefully then upstream start to balance themselves out. And a
Yes.
little bit of the thyroid hormone too, that he's low in, which is T4. But what's nice is if we look at his remedies, we can see specifically like what his body's asking for. So if we go through each of them, um, it tells us what he can handle and what is a priority for him. So like, for example, seeing this cilantro come up tells me that most likely heavy metals are a big thing for him because cilantro is a fantastic formula to help bind up heavy metals so he can digest them out. So that one's significant. The dandelion, this will be similar to like your milk thistle, clearly supportive for the liver. This one's nice too because it also helps with any kind of excess fluid retention. But does he have any fluid retention?
I don't think so.
Okay. And then Dentastat, this one's specifically designed to clear any toxicity that's in his mouth and in that teeth and jaw drainage. And that could be whether it's bacterial or metals, like whatever it is, that the ingredient list here helps to kind of flush that entire area. And then Drain Par, this one is doing two different things. It's a homeopathic formula that helps to drain any of his detox pathways while strengthening them. So when I see Drain Par come up, it's kind of like his body is saying, yes, I need to flush this toxicity, but I'm not strong enough to do a detox or like a harsh detox formula. Which is nice to know that this is a nice gentle formula for him. And then the Histopol HP, this is specifically just to help with any kind of histamine response he's having to some of the sensitivities. And then last but not least, the Arena Par, this is another homeopathic that helps to strengthen his kidneys and that urogenital system.
Okay.
What's interesting, so if you look at this, it's like, okay, this is all great, but what about the parasites? What about some of the bacterias and things like that? What about the mold? And there's nothing, well, I guess we have the heavy metals, maybe a little bit of antibacterial support from the Dentastat, but everything else is very supportive and strengthening and draining, which tells us he can't handle anything too aggressive right now. Which I find this last section like one of the most beneficial because it tells us we want to move the needle, but not too hard or too fast.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And it also probably has to do with his age that, don't want to go after it like a madman.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I would always just start super slow. Yeah.
yes.
So when you
Um,
do the remedies in the hot water, so if
yeah.
you're prepping, I would take like a few glasses, just not steel or not metal, not because homeopathics will react to a metal container or spoon. Don't use a metal spoon. And like I don't know if you have an electric tea kettle or anything like that, but just steam the water or pop
I'll
it
just,
on the
yeah, I'll
stove.
do it regularly. Old school.
Yeah. And then just like put a little bit, you could put like a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon in each glass, enough to just have it really hot and steaming, and then pour that into each glass. And then just what I might do first, put all your drops in the different glasses first, and you can combine them. And then heat the water and pour the water over each of the glasses. And what's nice is that hot water will allow the alcohol to dissipate out and just let it cool down then. And once it's cooled, that alcohol is gone.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the heat isn't going to take away from the homeopathy.
No, no. Yeah, you've got a little deeper stress than Charlie, but you've also been dealing with thyroid issues a lot longer than he's been dealing with his issues. So it makes sense to see the orange. So just to give you a little bit of a background on the difference here. So green is good, or this bluish green color, and then yellow is inflammation. Orange is chronic inflammation, and then red would be more on that degenerative side, weakness, and then in the maroon is chronic weakness. So I didn't touch on that earlier, but just to kind of give you that lowdown of exactly what the color coding is. And then for you, so here we have this little area that says most significantly stressed. I mean, it's your entire endocrine system, with the exception of your adrenal glands being at the top of what's driving this entire, like, for sure your endocrine system down, but overall in your entire body, it's these 4 glands that are the big ones, or 5 glands, excuse me. So let's actually touch on that first, because I always like to look at the endocrine system and the nervous system together. It's kind of like that neuroendocrine system where it's like the communication pathways throughout our entire body. We don't realize that it's telling everything to do what it's supposed to do, like your cognitive
Yeah.
health, your sleep, your body temperature, your like everything.
Yeah, so let me show you really fast. So I went to a number of endocrinologists for my thyroid disease back in, when I had it. And the endocrinologist would put a tissue on my hand like this to see how much my hand would vibrate.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
yeah, it's definitely nervous system related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it still?
I'm hypo, I believe. So I was
Oh,
hyper.
okay.
So no, it's fine. But that's usually if I feel I'm very, very aware of my thyroid feelings because I went through it for 8 years trying to avoid having my thyroid zapped or removed.
Yeah.
So I actually would change my anti-thyroid drugs from if I was on 10 milligrams and felt hypo, I would move down to 5, and my endocrinologist would get really mad at me. Be like,
Yeah.
please have your blood taken. And I'm like, take my blood. I feel pretty good. And it would always be right because that's how I became so in tune with my body was going through that. So even though it was awful, I'm thankful for it. But it also, and I want to mention this, is I discovered that birth control, which I was put on for not for birth control, but for heavy cramps, was the leading cause into my hyperthyroidism. So a estrogen imbalance caused my thyroid. So how I went into remission was getting off of birth control. I went into remission immediately.
Wow.
And now I'm in menopause. So again, my estrogen's out of whack. I'm not
Yeah.
taking any meds, but I'm not surprised that my thyroid's like, what's going on?
Oh, for sure. And not just your thyroid, but like all of your endocrine glands.
Yes.
They're like a symphony, and it's like they operate like in unison, and when one is off, it sort of just like makes them all go off. But interestingly, talking about birth control, you have some markers here that are, I guess just a couple, but um, like birth control will tank your cysteine levels as
Mm,
well as your vitamin B6 levels.
mm,
And when you look at vitamin B6 and cysteine, those are two nutrients that are so important in your body's ability to detox on its own. It's kind of like they're a little bit of like markers for your methylation or your ability to like purge toxicity. And so, like when you're low in cysteine, it's going to impact, or NB6, it's going to impact your digestion. It's going to impact your liver and gallbladder. It's going to impact your lymphatic system because those are all areas of the body that dump toxins.
okay. And I also have the MTHR, is that right?
Oh,
Gene
you do?
mutation? Yes.
Okay. Yep. And these would be two markers for that as well. Cysteine and
Okay.
vitamin B6. So those are markers for it for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Because I have not been on birth control since 2008. So,
Right.
but it could still be my system
It,
problem.
I mean, maybe it could be in your system, but maybe it just depleted you. But it makes more sense if you're a poor methylator, which now I know you are. That's why they're there. But if you have the mutation for it, and you always have, and you were on birth control back then, and you already had these deficiencies because you're a poor methylator, now all of a sudden you're taking a birth control on top of that, and you're significantly depleting those. It's no wonder
Mm,
you felt so much better when you stopped the birth control.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay. I just found out about the gene mutation a year ago or something. So,
Mhm. Yeah, so it's like unfortunately you're one of those people that have to work harder on a formal detox more regularly than the person that doesn't have that mutation. Uh,
okay.
it's like doing the regular Epsom salt baths, or if you tolerate heat, right, getting into a sauna regularly, or just like taking detox remedies more regularly. Yeah. But well, I this is where the conversation is going to get interesting with your toxins. You have the heavy metals and the chemicals that for sure impact endocrine glands. I mean, chemicals, metals, they are like they go to endocrine glands like sponges, and then they steal receptor sites of some of your hormones. So that's one factor, and those are both coming up in that area for sure. But you also came up with 3 different resonating strains of Borrelia, which is similar to, like, what I had.
Mm,
So it's not saying, like, you have Lyme disease, but you're carrying the bacteria, the signature of it, which seems to really be impacting your endocrine glands quite a bit, but also your nervous system. Borrelia can latch on to nerves. They can, they're a corkscrew shaped bacteria, which means they can move throughout the body. And maybe one day you're like, why does my elbow hurt? And the next day you're like, why is my eye twitching? Because it just they can kind of move wherever they want to move. Um, so have you ever had a tick bite or a
oh,
mosquito
oh
bite?
yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
have.
I
Okay.
mean, it's been, as a kid, went to Minnesota but also my parents have a lake house, so yes.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. You've never been tested for it, have you? Like,
No,
blood?
no.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the last year or so, I've been trying to figure out more, um, because I can't go on hormones. My mom got breast cancer, and it's hormone related, and so I don't want to go on hormones to fix this menopause
Yeah, yeah,
awesomeness.
yeah.
Um, so that yes, I think somebody asked, I don't know, have you been tested for Lyme disease? And I was like, no. And then I muscle tested it, and I got a no. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean it's correct, but
Well, and plus there's all different layers.
yes.
Like, when did you test, and why is it coming up at your surface right now? And it's definitely just the beauty of being able to test in a methodic way is helpful, because, like, for example, we're testing you, what's the date of this? October 7th, and it's coming up at your surface. So what's nice is we can address things now or clear things now based on the priority of your body. But maybe say you finish this regimen and we test you again in a month or two, and it's no longer coming up. It's because we potentially cleared it. And it's now we're down to the next layer to deal with new things. But one thing when it comes to tick-borne bugs is when there's one, there's often more. And so what's interesting though, this is the only one that came up for you. You only had Borrelia come up,
Mm,
where the soup du jour of tick-borne bugs is Bartonella, Babesia, Ehrlichia. There's so many of them. So they might just not be showing themselves yet. And so, like, similar, when you're muscle testing it, you might not test for Bartonella yet, but maybe it's down the line. Hopefully it's not.
uh,
Hopefully it's not.
Hopefully it's not. And you
Yeah.
did bring up a thing that I was curious about. Like, do you really rid your body of this stuff, or could it come back?
I mean, for me with Borrelia, I like when I started my journey on clearing it, it came back consistent. I was so sick. I mean, I was so, so sick. And, when I was working with that doctor in Wisconsin, we got to a place where I was doing really well, but then flare-ups would happen. And luckily by that time, I had my own testing system and I was able to work on myself. But it took me years, like years, to be able to test and finally not have it come up. And now
Mm,
I haven't had it come up in 5, 6 years, which is incredible. Incredible. So
yeah,
I've disowned Borrelia. It's not welcome here anymore.
that's awesome.
Uh,
Um, I am excited though because I've been super tired. I mean, that could have been because of the virus.
mm,
But yeah, I mean, I know even though my adrenals, I just feel like adrenal fatigue. So, because I don't know what hypothalamus and all that feels like, I just associate it with what I know. Um,
sure. Like
so
hypothalamus, this is going to be like
hypothalamus.
a lot of your body temperature, mental clarity. It's kind of like the conductor to all the rest of the glands. So when this one's off, you definitely feel it. And this is a big one for body temperature regulation. So lots of times if we can get this one into balance, I mean, the first thing that like keeps us up at night when we're having a hot flash is because this darn hypothalamus, or potentially the imbalance in our progesterone and estrogen. But for you with that one, we're going to be working on it with this dim liposome. Have you ever taken this specific formula before?
No.
Oh, you're gonna love it. I love this formula. It's you just need a tiny bit and you hold it under your tongue and it's sublingual, hold it for like 20 seconds. You can do it once in the morning and ideally on an empty stomach and then right again at bedtime. And it works at just getting your estrogen into balance. And of course, it helps to work on all of your endocrine glands as well. But then also you have this N-acetyl forte come up, which this is this is cysteine, which you're low in, but the cool thing about an acetylcysteine is it's working on your liver and gallbladder. It's working at helping to bind up heavy metals. It actually helps with viruses. It does a lot of different things, but it also really helps at balancing out our hormones. So when you have xenoestrogens, which will create a lot of hot flashes and things like that, or low progesterone, this is going to really help with it. So I like that for you a lot. And then of course, making sure you're getting lots of B6 rich foods into your diet. That's all going to help with your hormones. Yeah. So you have a lot going on there. In terms of the Borrelia that's coming up though, you have this wild bear garlic, which is nice because it's sort of an all-encompassing heavy metal formula, I'm reading that, antimicrobial formula. And so while it addresses all organisms, it'll work on the Borrelia, but very gently. And so it's kind of like your body's not ready for anything too intense for the Borrelia right now either. So kind of like Charlie has some things going on that he's not ready for. You have some things going on that you're not ready to hit super hard, but gently. And the nice thing is this garlic is also going to help to balance the cholesterol.
I'm actually taking garlic and NAC anyway, but not at the milligram levels that are suggested. So that's interesting.
Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully hitting it harder that will.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I do have high cholesterol, which I've also fought my doctor about because it's just below 300. And that in the 70s, they didn't put you on any statins for below 300. So I'm excited too, because this will give me like 3 months on that before I have to get my blood taken again.
Yeah, no, this will be good. And one thing you can also do, so just kind of jumping ahead and looking at the digestive system and this liver gallbladder that you're stressed in. Um, so I don't think it's your liver. No, your liver is actually good, but it's your gallbladder.
Mm.
But the liver and the gallbladder work so closely. And when there's stress in either of them, it's telling us your body is not processing your fats as well as you should be, which can then lead to high cholesterol. So something to keep in mind, and you could try, like you didn't come up low in lipase either, but you could really focus on almost more of a grazing style. I mean, do you get like a little bloated or like indigestion when you eat a big meal?
No, that's actually all I do is eat one big meal a day.
Oh, you do. Holy moly. Huh.
I hate grazing,
You
but
hate grazing.
maybe I need to start doing that.
It might be, yeah, it might be where like when did you start that?
11 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah,
I
you,
used to eat 3 meals a day and I would always feel terrible. So I just stopped and ate one big meal. Yeah,
huh. And you feel fine after it.
I do. I mean, depending on what I eat.
Yeah.
I don't always eat what I should eat. But yes, my biggest problem is sugar.
Gotcha.
I like
Which is
have to
very
have it every day.
inflammatory, obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which surprisingly, you didn't come up sensitive to any sugars. Um,
But I did a 3-day fast last year, right before I had my annual physical, because I thought maybe it would help with my cholesterol. Um, and I literally heard my gallbladder empty. I
Oh,
heard it. I was like, wow. The third day. It was amazing.
wow. Did you pass any gallbladder stones or anything like that that you saw?
Oh gosh, I hope not. No, I mean I would think that would be painful, but no. Um,
Uh,
I
you
I
if
did do a
I
parasite cleanse though, where I pulled something out of me.
Yeah, which is awesome that you did that. I mean, it's an awkwardly rewarding feeling when that happens.
It's very rewarding. Yes, and it's also like, oh,
Yeah. You might want to try it's Hulda Clark. Have you ever heard of Hulda Clark? She was kind of like a renegade back in her day, like a very early on in like energy medicine and very holistic. But she wrote the book like oh gosh, is it The Cure for Cancer? I think she wrote The Cure for Cancer and then a few other books, but she in her books has this recipe for Hulda Clark's liver gallbladder cleanse
hmm.
and it might be something you want to explore. It's like a 24-hour commitment where you drink some things the night before and then like you eat lightly that day and then that evening you drink like some Epsom salts and a concoction of grapefruit juice and olive oil. When you wake up the next day, you literally start passing gallstones. And when you see them come out, you're just like, how were these in my bile ducts and in my gallbladder and stuck in my liver and all of that?
Uh,
But in doing that, what's really cool is you're cleansing your liver and your gallbladder so much that a lot of sensitivities start to subside, but then you're going to start to metabolize your fats a lot better, which means your cholesterol should come down, which means your actual metabolism should improve as well. So there's tons of benefits. Yeah.
okay, I want to do it today because I feel so fat. So that'd be great.
When we hop off, I'll message it to you. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
even know if I have a copy of the instructions, but they're all over online. I'll find some and send them to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. With your digestion, if we look down here, like here's glutamine that you're low in. And this helps to keep your gut lining nice and strong. So when I see that, especially paired with a stress in your digestive system, it's never a big surprise to start seeing food sensitivities popping up because it's kind of like a little bit of that leaky gut going on.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're low in amylase, which means you're having a hard time breaking your carbohydrates down. Plus, you're sensitive to a whole bunch of grains. So these
Yeah.
ones would definitely be a good one to next, at least for like 30 days or so.
Okay.
And then you're low in hydrochloric acid, which is your stomach produces this. And so when we have parasites and bacterias and things like that, or just hormonal changes, we start to naturally produce less hydrochloric
Mm,
acid. So what's super simple is you could take a little shot of like apple cider vinegar and a tiny bit of water before each of your meals. And that will help you start to naturally stimulate some hydrochloric acid before you eat so that you can start more thoroughly digesting and assimilating the nutrients.
okay.
Um, so I talked about that one. So the metabolism, this is the one of the biggest connections that I found throughout your report is like this trio right here. So it's kind of like your thyroid is impacting your metabolism and your gallbladder is impacting your metabolism, but like all of them together, when you have that happening, it like starts to branch off because then of course, if your metabolism, that's like the core health of your cell where you're producing ATP fuel to give your body energy to do everything it needs, it starts to trigger and impact other things like your brain, your digestion, your immune system, and so it's kind of like this trio, if you could really focus on this trio, it should hopefully help everything else.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Let's see if there's any other really big things that I wanted to point out as well. Um, Ah, your teeth and jaw drainage came up, is stressed in this one, as well as your throat and tonsils. But now that we're talking, it could be that that's when you were sick. So, yeah, yeah. Um,
Literally, the lymph nodes underneath my ears before were like rocks.
oh,
Um, and I went to my acupuncturist and I was like, stab them. And she was like, Jenny, that's not how it works. I'm like, I don't care, just stab him. Gosh. Um,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Well, that there's that, and of course, I mean that makes so much sense with this. But then you and Charlie both had the mycoplasma come up. Uh,
Yes.
so that mycoplasma, luckily, will be addressed in the garlic. The garlic, and if you're doing the apple cider vinegar, I think that could be really helpful. With the teeth and jaw drainage, though, you could also oil pull. Have you ever oil pulled?
Yes. I haven't done it recently, but okay.
Yeah,
And
that
I
would be.
actually give Charlie garlic for flea control.
Oh, nice.
So that's good. That will help that too. Right? For
Yeah.
him,
Yep, yep,
hopefully.
yep, for sure. Are you taking vitamin D right now?
Yes.
How
Like a
much?
vitamin D K combo.
Oh, nice. Which is good because you'll better absorb it, and you'll better absorb it if you take it with a little fat as well, like a fish oil or something.
It's got coconut oil in it too.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Do you know how many IUs are in it?
I think it's 10,000.
Oh, it is. Holy moly, and you're still coming up low. Um, hmm,
Um, I know that like my endocrinologist, I went to Mayo for my endocrinologist, and he was big on vitamin D. Um,
yeah, and maybe you just need to focus a little bit more on the some of the nutrients that support the absorption of it, like calcium. Not that you need to run out and take a calcium supplement, but really focus on the foods that are rich in calcium and try to make that part of your everyday type of diet, especially like when you're consuming your supplement of the vitamin D.
okay.
And hormonally, you're low in growth hormone, which we all start producing less of that once we turn 25. But when we produce this when we go to sleep at night, and if you're not sleeping deeply and consistently, then you're not producing enough of that. So one of the things that could help you get better sleep and just help you feel more awake throughout the day and hopefully help with some of your hormones is working on your circadian rhythm. So going
Mm,
to bed at the same time every day, getting up in the morning at the same time every day, and maybe even getting outside and getting some fresh sunlight on your face first thing in the morning.
okay.
And then these last two are very digestion related, which we're going to be hitting in the regimen. So we talked about the DIM. That one's going to be huge for your hormones. The holoplexus. So this one, I would say this one would be, and you can just follow the instructions right here. Since you only eat one meal a day, definitely take this one 60 minutes before that, but you could do it again like at bedtime, take another one like at bedtime. And this is going to help to bind a lot of the toxins up so that you start to digest them out.
Okay.
And this one's nice because it has some nice digestive support in there. You have
I
that.
am scared about detoxing and constipation.
Do
I
you
hate
struggle
being
with that? You are honestly.
No, I do not struggle with constipation, but when I did that parasite cleanse at first, I was like, this is great. I don't even have to try. Um, and then I got constipated and I was like, I hate this.
Uh,
So, that's detoxing always scares me because of that.
I don't think you're going to have that, especially like with this formula in particular. Here you have aloe in there, which
Oh,
aloe will actually help to loosen a little bit. And then slippery elm will help to rebuild the mucosa in your digestive wall lining. So that should help too. So,
okay.
um, but you can always like message me and just be like, hey, things are slowing down. What do I need to tweak? Um, and if that's the case, I'm thinking we would maybe tweak this NAC. Some people can detox kind of hard from that. I don't think that's going to be the case for you, but if you feel something like where you're detoxing too hard, just let me know and this will probably be the one we'll tweak.
Okay.
The Spectrolite, this is one that you'll add to your water. And you can either add it to like a big glass of water and drink it throughout the day, or just do a small glass of water and then just do it like a shot. But this will help to balance all of your minerals. This is an amazing formula. And then of course, make sure you're only putting it through your filtered water or your spring water, not your tap water.
Okay.
And then the garlic is your antimicrobial. And then the Xenobioforce. This one I love too because you have astragalus in there, which is great for all sorts of tick-borne support. Like it
Mm.
helps to sort of minimize some of the activity with ticks, like the tick-borne bugs. Also great for your immune system. But then also you have some ginger in there, which is good for parasites. Vitamin C, which will also help to make sure things are flowing throughout your digestive system and your liver. And then the wild cherry bark will be helpful for actually sleep as well. And this one has been used a lot with people that have had a lot of mold exposure as well. So I really don't think you're going to detox hard at all, but what you could do is just like start at a quarter of the dose on any of these and then just build up to the full dose over like a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I already started with the NAC last night and I took that dim this morning.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
I didn't know how long to hold it. So now I know 20
Yeah.
seconds.
Roughly 20 seconds or until it's like just soaked in. Yeah.
Yes. And I started one other one. I don't remember which one it was, but whatever muscle testing said yesterday to start with, I did. Um, and it was only, I said, okay, which of these do I start with? And it swung to two. And then I said, how many pills? And it started with one. And that I hadn't even really read this entirely. And I was like, oh, it says to start with one. Cool. Validated again.
That must have been the NAC. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people, when they take that one, like if they go ahead and just go jump into that full dose right away, it hits them a little bit harder than they were expecting. So I'm glad you started slow.
Yeah, I'm glad too that the universe treated me right. So the thing that I found interesting, because I take NAC, I don't know how many milligrams, but what's the big deal from not from China?
Oh, just well, the manufacturer lists that, but also just
Oh,
their quality standards are way different. Way, way different. Yeah.
okay,
And
got it,
not good.
got it.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
nice thing
mean,
about like the Physica brand that are all of these ones under yours, um, their standards are insanely high for their raw ingredients. It's like the best of the best. Like I have
mm,
the feeling once you get on the full regimen and you're in the swing of the entire thing, you're gonna feel it pretty quick. Um,
oh,
yeah,
good,
yeah, yeah.
good.
A lot of people that are exposed to Physica for the first time, there's like, holy cow, I can't believe how quickly I feel this. Especially like for someone like you that's so intuitive. You'll feel it hopefully right away.
Cool. I'm excited. Like really
Likewise.
excited. Oh, that's the one I took was the clay one.
Oh, the
Um,
whole Texas?
yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. And actually, this is might be fascinating for you. So bentonite clay, Pam told me about this because she learned it from Poppy Phillips. That whenever Charlie has a bad histamine reaction, he has this head trimmer, and all I have to do is give him a mill of bentonite clay, and it takes care of it.
Oh my gosh.
So I was
That's
like, "Gosh, I need it too." Wow,
yeah. Not a huge surprise.
not a surprise at all.
Oh,
Um, Well, I mean, this has been very enlightening and very cool. I'm super pumped. Like, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this. I don't think I realized what I had signed up for. And it's way better than I thought it was. So
yay.
thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.